My name is Maya. I want to share my story with you, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. It's a story about silence, love, choices, and learning to find your voice. I grew up in a house where quiet was expected. My parents were very strict. There was no playing outside, no sleepovers, no birthday parties. I wasn't allowed to run in the streets like the other kids. I had no toys, no pets, no chance to just be a child. My parents believed in rules, not emotions. Stay inside. Don't waste time, they always said. So I stayed in my room. I watched the world from my window, wondering what it would be like to laugh with friends, to ride a bike, or to draw pictures on the sidewalk. I loved drawing. I would sketch for hours. Flowers, animals, even dream houses where I could imagine a different life. But my parents didn't care about art. That's not important, they said. Study, get good grades. I didn't go to kindergarten, so when I finally started school, I was nervous. I didn't know how to talk to other children. I remember holding my books tight to my chest, wondering how to speak without feeling like I'd done something wrong. But slowly, I found one or two kind classmates. I didn't say much. I still told myself, be quiet, stay safe. But I watched, listened, and learned how to be part of something. As I got older, I dreamed of joining art classes and school sports. But every time I asked, the answer was the same. No, focus on your future. That's not for you. I tried to be a good daughter. I did my homework, kept my head down, and obeyed every rule. But inside, I felt like something was missing, like I was waiting for a moment where someone would finally see me. That moment came when I entered college. His name was Ben. He was different from anyone I had ever known. Tall, funny, full of life. He noticed me, and that alone felt like magic. We started talking after class. He complimented my drawings. He made me laugh. He said, "You're beautiful," and I believed him. No one had ever said that to me before, not even once. With Ben, I felt free. For the first time, I didn't have to hide who I was. He made me feel alive. He listened when I spoke, and he looked at me like I mattered. We spent hours talking, on campus benches, over cheap coffee, sometimes just walking and laughing. He would say, "You're my best friend," and I would smile, my heart racing. I started thinking, maybe this is what love is. At 18, I thought I had found everything I ever wanted. When Ben asked me to marry him, I said yes without thinking. He said, "Why do you need college? I'll take care of you. We'll start a family." I didn't argue. I didn't want to lose him. My dreams of finishing school, becoming something more, they faded quietly behind my love for him. I dropped out of college, packed my books away, and stepped into the life he had imagined for us. And for a little while, it felt like the right decision. We got married. We laughed, we held hands, we planned names for future children. A year later, we had our first baby, a beautiful little girl named Sophie. She was tiny and perfect, with bright eyes and the softest giggle. I held her in my arms and whispered, "I'll give you the life I never had." At that moment, I truly believed everything would be okay. But the story was only beginning. For a little while, life with Ben felt peaceful. After Sophie was born, our days were filled with baby cries, warm bottles, and quiet lullabies. I stayed home while Ben went out to work. I cooked, cleaned, and cared for our daughter while waiting for him to come home each night. But slowly, things began to change. At first, it was small. Ben started commenting on my clothes. "Why are you wearing that?" he'd ask, frowning. "It's too short. You're a mother now." He didn't like my short hair or the tattoos I had before we met. "You should look more proper," he said. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe I needed to try harder. So I stopped wearing certain clothes. I grew my hair out. I stopped painting my nails. Then he started asking me not to see my friends. "You don't need them," he'd say. "Stay home with Sophie. She needs you." I thought maybe he was right. So I slowly cut ties, stopped texting, stopped going out. I told myself I was just being a good wife. Ben began coming home later and later. When I asked where he had been, he'd say, "Out with friends." "Why are you always asking questions?" His voice became sharp, his eyes colder. I felt something change in the air, something I couldn't touch, but I could feel it. I tried to talk to him one night. "Ben, I feel lonely. I miss the way things used to be." He snapped, "You're too sensitive. Stop complaining." I went to bed with tears in my eyes. Then one evening, something worse happened. He came home angry about something small. Dinner wasn't warm enough. The baby had been crying. The house wasn't as clean as he wanted. He raised his voice. He called me names. Then, for the first time, he hit me. It was just one slap, but it felt like a thunderstorm had crashed into my chest. I couldn't believe it. I sat in the corner of the room after he left, holding Sophie close as tears streamed down my face. My hands were shaking. My heart was crushed. I had never imagined the man who once made me laugh would be the same man who would hurt me. The next morning, I went to my parents. I held Sophie in my arms and cried, "Please help me. I want to leave." But my mother looked at me and said, "You are married now. You must stay with your husband." My heart broke again. I had no job, no money, and nowhere to go. So I went back. I told myself maybe things will get better. Maybe that was just one bad night. Maybe love can fix this. A few months later, I became pregnant again, this time with a baby boy. When I told Ben, he barely smiled. When I gave birth to our son, Leo, he didn't come to the hospital. I held my baby boy alone, kissed his tiny face, and whispered, "I will protect you." When I came home with Leo in my arms, Ben looked at me and said coldly, "Why are you here so soon?" I felt like I didn't exist. One evening he told me directly, "I'm seeing someone else. She loves me more than you do." He didn't try to hide it. He had a girlfriend. And still I stayed. Not because I didn't want to leave, but because I didn't know how. I had 2 children, no income, no family nearby. My world had become very small, and I didn't know where to turn. But something inside me, something small but burning, told me that this wasn't the end of my story. I didn't know it then, but my strength was only just beginning to rise. Life became heavier with each passing day. After Leo was born, I tried to hold things together. For him, for Sophie, for whatever pieces of love still remained. But deep down, I knew something was broken. Ben no longer pretended to care. He stayed out late, spent weekends away, and when he was home, he barely spoke to me. When he did, it was usually harsh. I lived like a shadow in my own home. I wanted to leave. I thought about packing a bag every night. But where would I go? I had no money, no job, and 2 children who depended on me for everything. My parents had already made it clear they wouldn't support me if I left my husband. My mother had moved abroad after my father passed away. I felt truly alone. Then one morning, Ben gave me news I wasn't ready for. "I'm joining the army," he said casually. "I'll be leaving soon." Just like that. He didn't ask how I'd manage with 2 small children. He didn't leave money, didn't plan anything. He simply left, vanished into a world far away, while I stayed behind with the weight of everything he abandoned. I cried every day after he left. Sophie was still young, but she could sense my sadness. She'd crawl into my lap, hug me tight, and say, "It's okay, Mama." Those moments broke my heart and healed me at the same time. Leo was still a baby. I'd rock him to sleep while whispering prayers I didn't even know I believed in anymore. Then one afternoon, the phone rang. It was Ben. "I've met someone," he said without hesitation. "She makes me happy." My chest felt tight. I couldn't speak. I asked, "Why would you tell me this?" He said, "I just want to be honest." Honest? After everything? He hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I didn't cry. I just stared at the wall in silence, holding Leo, watching Sophie sleep. Something inside me was shifting. The pain was still there, but there was also anger, and a quiet voice rising in my heart, saying, "This isn't the end for you, Maya." 3 months passed, then another call. "I made a mistake," Ben said. "Please take me back." I didn't know what to say. I still loved him, even after everything. I wanted to believe that people could change. I wanted to believe that maybe our family could be whole again. So I said yes. He returned, and for a while, he tried. He helped with the kids, acted kindly, made promises. I wanted to believe it was real. But time showed the truth. He hadn't really changed, not inside. He still shouted when he was angry. He still blamed me for things I couldn't control. He didn't raise his hands again, but his words, they were like knives, cutting deep, leaving invisible scars. We stayed married, not out of love, but out of history, out of fear, out of hope that maybe something good could still come from all the pain. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Tired eyes, a faded smile, a woman who had given so much but forgotten who she was. That night, I whispered to my reflection, "You deserve better." It wasn't a scream, it wasn't even loud, but it was the beginning. The first moment I believed that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild my life from the pieces I still had. It was just an ordinary morning. The kids were playing quietly. I stood at the sink, washing dishes, lost in thought. The sun was shining through the window, but I didn't feel its warmth. My life had become a routine of survival. Feed the children, clean the house, stay quiet when Ben got upset. I had forgotten what joy felt like. Then there was a knock at the door. I opened it to see my neighbor, Lena, standing with a gentle smile and 2 cups of tea. "Hi, Maya," she said softly. "I thought you could use some company." I hesitated. I was scared Ben would be angry if he found out. He didn't like me talking to anyone. But something inside me whispered, "You need this." So I nodded and let her in. We sat at my small kitchen table. At first, I just listened, but Lena had a calm way about her. She didn't push or judge, and after a few minutes, the words began to pour out. I told her about Ben, about how he had left, come back, promised to change, and didn't. I told her how tired I felt, how I cried in silence, afraid of what people would think. I told her I felt invisible. Lena reached across the table and gently held my hand. "You're not alone," she said. "I see you, and I want to help." That simple sentence broke something open inside me. I cried, for the first time in front of someone who cared, without pretending I was okay. Lena told me she used to feel the same way. She had left an unhappy marriage years ago and had rebuilt her life piece by piece. Then she gave me an idea. "You're good at baking," she said. "Why not try selling your cakes? You can work from home, stay with the kids, and earn a little money. Start small." It sounded impossible at first. I had no business skills, no confidence, and Ben would never approve. But the thought stayed with me. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, remembering how much I used to love baking. I pulled out a recipe and made a simple chocolate cake, just for me. The next day, I gave a slice to Lena. She took one bite and smiled. "This is amazing," she said. "You should sell this." So I tried. I made one cake and posted a picture online in a local group. Someone placed an order, then another. Slowly, things began to change. I felt purpose again. I wasn't just a wife or a mother, I was Maya. I was doing something for myself, for my children, and it felt good. One evening, Ben came home and saw the kitchen full of baking trays. "What is all this?" he asked sharply. "I'm selling cakes," I said, my voice firm but calm. "I need to do this. For me, for the kids." He stared at me, shocked, maybe even confused. I had never spoken to him like that before. He didn't say much, just walked away. And I, despite the fear in my chest, stood tall. It wasn't just about the cakes. It was about reclaiming a small piece of who I was. Lena introduced me to her friends. They became my support system, women who had walked their own hard roads and come out stronger. I started wearing colors again. I cut my hair short, just how I liked it. I began to smile more, not just for the kids, but for myself. One day, Sophie looked at me and said, "Mama, you look happy today." Her words filled my heart with something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The spark had been lit, and I was finally starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could become the woman I was meant to be. The woman I saw in the mirror was no longer the same. She had the same eyes, the same quiet voice, but something inside her had changed. She stood a little taller now. Her shoulders weren't so heavy. Her heart still carried pain, but it also held courage. That woman was me. My small home bakery grew slowly. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was making something even more valuable: independence. I could buy things for the kids without asking. I could plan their birthdays, give them treats, and show them that even in hard times, joy could exist. Ben still lived with us. He still had moods, still got angry, but now I had boundaries. One night, he shouted at me over something small. Maybe the food wasn't hot, or the kids were too loud. I stood up, looked him in the eye, and said, "I will not be spoken to like this. If you ever hit me or hurt me again, I will leave, and this time I won't come back." He didn't believe me at first, but I wasn't the same scared girl anymore. The next morning, I packed a small bag and left with the kids for the day, not out of fear, but to show him that I meant what I said, that I wasn't afraid of starting over anymore. When I returned, he was quiet. He didn't apologize, but he didn't yell either. I had finally found my voice. Lena and her friends kept cheering me on. They became the sisters I never had. With their help, I began to dream again. I thought about taking a few online classes, maybe learning to run my baking business better. I wanted to grow, not just for me, but to show Sophie and Leo that life doesn't end when things fall apart. Sometimes that's when it begins. Sophie was growing fast. She loved to draw and sing. I saw myself in her, the girl I used to be, full of creativity and light. I made her art supplies a priority. She once looked up from her sketchpad and said, "Mama, I want to be like you when I grow up." I smiled with tears in my eyes. Leo was full of energy. He loved toy cars and hugs. He'd run around the house laughing, and every time he shouted, "Mama," I felt strong. I was their safe place, their home, and I had finally learned to be mine too. I started wearing the clothes I liked again. I painted my nails. I lit candles in the house just because it made me happy. I went to sleep each night knowing I had survived something hard. But I was no longer just surviving. I was living. Ben, I don't know if he'll ever change, but that's no longer something I carry on my back. I still live with him, for now, but I live with clear limits. And if the day comes when I have to walk away completely, I know I will have the strength to do it. Because now I know who I am. I'm not just someone's wife. I'm not just someone's mother. I'm Maya. I am strong. I am enough. And I am not waiting for life to make me happy. I'm learning to make that happiness for myself. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I wake up every morning, look at my children, and whisper to myself, "Keep going. You're doing it." And if you're reading my story, I want you to remember something too. You are not weak for staying. You are not wrong for hurting. But you are powerful when you begin again. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to become someone new. And you are never, ever alone.